Well, good evening and welcome to you. It's always beautiful to be with you. So, number of announcements. Our next retreat online will be August 22nd through the 24th. I do hope you can make it. And as always, with any of my online groups and retreats and those types of things, if you need a scholarship, send me an email. And if you don't hear back from me, send me another email because I just get so backed up. But we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you. So, in this next retreat, we're going to be focusing on opening to spiritual freedom and receiving grace. And this is a cornerstone of our teaching and of this Sangha is first opening and connecting to the depth of what we are. And then, of course, uh, intermingled in that whole dance is welcoming the grace of God, welcoming divine support, because being human is really hard. It's really confusing. It's really messy. And even if we do open to true nature, when we open to divine intelligence, it gives us an opportunity to connect with great compassion, great intelligence, great healing, support. It invites us to open and experience what in the Catholic Church calls the community of saints. So the community of saints is all the divine ones. And so whether that's ascended masters or angels, God the Father, God the Mother, Jesus, Mary, you name it, you name it. I call every day asking for some form of help. Because again, this world is it's just a tough world. It's a tough world that we live in. Okay. So that's the big announcement. Later, this coming March, that's a ways out, we will be at the Shivananda Ashram in the Bahamas. So looking forward to that one. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of other things going on. Plenty of other things going on in the meantime. Trying to get something booked for Washington State sometime later in the fall and maybe in the winter. Okay. I think those are the announcements. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's close down our eyes. And I'm going to invite us just to play with some inquiry tonight. So I invite you to feel into your human nature. And just to notice what it feels like to be you, the human, with the personality, with the story and all the conditioning that has gone with your story. I'm, this age, I grew up here, this is my job. I'm married, I'm not married, I'm single, I'm in relationship, whatever it is. You can even feel into, if you have like a political orientation or dogmatic, spiritual orientation. And in this moment, I don't want there to be any judgment around it. We're just noticing what it feels like. The direct experience of being human. Of being human. And then I'm going to invite us to take a deep, full breath. And just to press pause there. To press pause on your narrative. Now, in a sense, let's just look at the date here. It's August 3rd, 2025. Or whatever the date is, if you're listening at a later date. And I want us to press pause. It's an absolute stop. on the narrative, on the personality, on the story of this incarnation. And then together as a Sangha, I invite us just to take a big backward step. And if you notice, like your story, it tends to live in the forehead or on the surface of the heart, the surface of the belly. And we're going to take a big backward step. We'll just step back with awareness, kind of expanding out the back side of the skull. You take a big step backwards, unhooking from our emotional nature and stepping back. It's like behind the heart, the other side of the spine. Feeling down into the belly. Often there can be a primal grip there, and let's take a big backward step back towards back of the spine, the sacrum, and even stepping out the back body. And I invite you simply to notice that even though the story stopped, the narrative of your life stopped, that there is one here who is present. There's one here who is present, who is awake. And can you give yourself permission simply to see your presence, to feel, to experience your presence? And a presence without a story, without an agenda, without any needs, without the game, the dance of coulda, woulda, shoulda. And I invite us to become intimately aware simply of your presence. And we are present to your presence. I'm going to invite us just to breathe here, continuing to soften and to open. And to notice what it's like to be a presence that does not need, that is not offended, is not struggling. And if you notice, this presence is so utterly open, so utterly innocent. This quiet space of love. And again, I'm going to invite us just to soften here and to open here more fully, to get comfortable. As for a lot of us, we are so accustomed to being kind of a loud, busy, egoic identity. Sometimes we get a little nervous or squirmy, like turn to a wiggle worm when we simply stop. And as we stop here, I invite you to smile at the innate goodness that you are. Like this presence that you are, it's innately good. It's good without any performance, without any doing. Like originally good, innately beautiful. An innocent purity here. So coming to recognize what it's like to be the one beyond the story, beyond the narrative, beyond the trajectory, simply being a Buddha. And so I invite you to feel around inside and to acknowledge that which is good, that which is divine, that which is radiant. About your nature. And as you witness the purity of yourself, I invite you to find, to experience, to acknowledge a couple of divine qualities that I haven't mentioned yet. And so we're breathing, we're feeling, we're opening to our timeless nature. And so you might find peace, you might find a quiet strength, a nobility, a radiance, and aliveness. Again, that's universally good. Now, as a matter of contrast, I'm going to invite you to look back at your human egoic identity, seeing the character and the struggle, the path, the hopes, the dreams, the things we grasp after. And I invite you to stay rooted in awareness. But to acknowledge the experience of the human personality. And I invite you just to notice the difference in experience. As awake awareness, as this presence, you might notice yourself really open and empty. And as a human, you might notice yourself, really closed off or tense or gripping or chasing or excited, excitable. And then I invite you, just to cut the personality loose again. Coming back into this empty space of awareness. A space that is purely open. And to make a decision, a choice. A choice. How to be. Who to be. From where to live from. From where to live from. What will you choose? What will you choose? And can you see, again, from a place of love, that perhaps that human one could use a little support, could use a little love, could use some gentleness. And so again, we continue to breathe and to feel and to soften. And to smile at this most difficult experience of being human. And so you can gently open your eyes, and I welcome you to Satsang. And I invite you to put in the chat just a little comparison. You may write a couple words, what it felt like to be in true nature, and then a couple words of what it felt like to be in the narrative. While I'm waiting for those, I'll just share a little bit of a story. So I've got a little girl, and my little girl likes to tell her daddy what she wants. And so she wants a playhouse, a clubhouse, a fort, a tree house. Well, we don't have a tree that's big enough, to put a house in it. And so you have to forgive me, my Facebook feed is having some trouble here. Give me a second here. Let me see if I can start these guys up again. I apologize. I've been having some trouble with Facebook recently with the stream on it. Okay, we're back. So I have this little girl and she wants a clubhouse. She wants um this place to hang outside and play. Now the problem is her daddy knows how to build anything, house related. I don't think I could build an apartment building. I bet I could, but if you want a house built, I can build that thing. And so she's been asking me for a long, long time, to build this clubhouse. And I've been injured this year. I've got a shoulder injury, so like my arm, just doesn't work all the way I want it to work, and kind of getting old. I don't like building so much anymore. But anyways, she keeps asking her daddy for a clubhouse. So I'm like, all right, fine. Um, let me get to work. Let me get to work. And it's a big deal because you have to dig the foundation, pour the concrete, and then you have to frame up the deck and uh, frame up the building. So this weekend, I was at the stage construction where, I had a deck built and, I had to frame up the walls. So I framed up, the four walls and, threw a roof on that thing. And, next thing I'm out there looking at like a tiny house in my yard. If we were in India, like this might be a home for a family. All of a sudden this thing got to be pretty big. And so I'm out there hustling and it's hot. And there's some big forest fires out west here. I think the ones in Durango, I think we got those ones put out, but Utah's on fire, Arizona's on fire, California's on fire. It's just wildfire season. And we've had a real drought this summer. Normally we have monsoons this time of year, and we've barely gotten any rain this year. And so we have big, beautiful sunny skies, but with a little bit of smoke in the air. And I don't like I don't like being outside and breathing smoke. I have enough trouble breathing at this elevation. So this is the narrative. This is the narrative is there's a father here. He's got a little girl. She wants something. It's the father's job to provide. And so I got to get out there in the hot sun and hustle and hustle. And so, that's what I've been doing all weekend. And there's this thing that happens within our egoic nature. If you are busy, like all day long, then the story of ego will just continue with this momentum. Now, another word for momentum is karma. Now, I don't like the way most people talk about karma, but I'm going to talk about karma this way is karma is this momentum. It's this force, this trajectory. And when I'm building, you're either going to be working for me or you better get the hell out of the way, because, I'm out there and I'm getting after it and I have very limited free time. And in my free time, I like to walk alone in the mountains. I like to, um, ride my mountain bike. I like just to do things where it's like really quiet and peaceful. But anyways, and so I have limited time. And so this is the story. This is the narrative of Mr. Craig Holliday. He's got a busy work life, busy family life, and then the family's asking for something extra. And, because I have a strong will, if I get my mind behind something, I'm going to do that thing. I'm going to do it. And so here I am out there framing in the hot sun and, putting up walls and then, putting up the rafters. My wife, she looked at my, the building I created and, she looked at the roof. And so the rafters, those are the things that, those are the boards and they're standing vertically on edge. And then you put the roof decking on it. That's like what most people would call plywood. It's really OSB. Anyways, so she's looking at that skeleton of a frame, like when you see a house framed up. And I tell her I'm going up on the roof, and she's looking at the roof, and there's nowhere to walk. There's only just the rafters. And I'm like, and she's like, well, how are you going to walk up there? And, if you're a framer, I mean, being a framer is like sometimes, like if you're going to get up on roofs and things, like sometimes you have to be like a kitty cat, where your feet kind of just dance along just these little skinny boards, and you jump from board to board. And my God, is it so utterly dangerous. And for a lot of people, it's terrifying. With my teacher, he used to invite us all out on retreat, and then whoever came on retreat would have to build, or work in the garden. But a lot of people are like, oh, building's fun, and so they'd look at the frame like I'm looking at, and I'd tell them we'll go up the ladder, and and they'd be like, nope. Nope. So anyways, I hustle myself up there. I get up on that ladder, and you know um and I start grabbing boards and throwing them up there, throwing sheets of OSB up there, and I just get to work. I get to work. And my wife, she's so happy, and she loves me, seeing me in my framing bags and this and that. I don't know what it is, but she gets so excited about it. And so I'm up there framing away in the hot sun, and you better get out of my way because I'm trying to get this job done. I want to get a roof on this thing before Satsang. And let me tell you, I didn't. I didn't. I got it decked. I put the ice and water shield on. That's like the new tar paper stuff. And I was going to get into the metal, but I just didn't make it. I didn't make it. Ran out of time. And as I felt into my body, I was like, oh my God, am I cooked? In fact, I almost didn't start the job this morning because we got a lot of smoke this morning. I was out walking around outside and kind of stacking the lumber and moving it around. And, I was starting to feel pretty ill just from, huffing and puffing, being 85 degrees and walking around in a smoky sky. It's not like the best working environment. But, my egoic agenda was my daughter wants a clubhouse, and you got a limited time, so you got to get it done now. And with that started to come this pressure, this pressure. And so throughout the day, I continued to remind myself, my wife even came out and reminded me too, that Jesus was a carpenter. And so I asked myself, well, how would Jesus build? How would he work under these conditions? Would he go inside and hide? I mean, I think in the olden days, they didn't really have windows. And so, the smoke would just go inside, so you wouldn't be able to escape it. But can you go forward from a place of peace? Can you go forward with love? Can you go forward with an open heart? Can you go forward with strength, Mr. Holliday? And so, as the old saying goes, I put my best foot forward. And I kept going forward, and did the best that I could do for this weekend, which when I go out in my backyard and look, I'm like, I did pretty good. Did pretty good. Did pretty good. Now, with our egoic identity, most of us, we get up, and we have this drive that says, I got to go to work. Tomorrow morning will be Monday morning. And it's just like, boom, it's business time. We start getting after it. And that movement, that momentum of mind, momentum of agenda, that momentum of my way pushes us forward throughout the day. And the more thoughts we have, the more agendas we have, and the more input we have. So if we have input from, I like this. I'm going to show you my phone here. Here's my phone right here. I like this as a phone. It's an empty case. I wish this was my phone. It would just be emptiness. But we pick up our phone and we receive whatever it is, the news, all these text messages. We look at our emails, maybe the boss is coming after us, maybe there's this drama or this struggle or this or that. And all this creates our narrative. And there's a problem with our narrative is the faster our narrative goes, the more identified you'll be with it. Often, the faster and the fuller your narrative is, the more suffering one will experience. And it's just a basic truth that if we're having this constant stimulus from the outside and then constant stimulus from the inside, about our hopes, our dreams, our desires, our agendas, I want, I need, I have to, whatever it is. The more full we are, the more we suffer. It's just a basic truth, a basic math. And many of us, we don't even realize the suffering we're experiencing because we never stop. We never stop and just step way back into this depth of presence. And when we step way back and just look, even if our suffering is just very subtle, if we just look at, oh, I believe this thing about my mother, and it causes this pain. It causes me to close my heart. If only my father were different. My oldest daughter, she had this whole story that her father should have been a doctor. She was supposed to be born into a family of doctors or CEOs for some very successful corporation. She did not get that. She did not get that. She got two hippies, and one of them is a spiritual teacher, is what she got, is what she got. And if she holds on to this idea, if she holds on to the story, and my God, she did hold on to it for a long time, it'll just create pain. She'll always be comparing her father, this guy, to the other fathers she wanted. And it was funny too, because in her childhood, she, like all her friends, she had these friends who were like really came from very rich, successful families. And here she had this father who was, again, like a hippie, young spiritual teacher, absolutely broke, driving an old Toyota car, or let's have some fun, a jacked up Ford F-350 pickup truck, back when I used to build a lot, with my teacher. And she wasn't happy with either of those options. She didn't like it. Now, my daughter, because she's grown up, I'm talking about my oldest daughter now. Well, she looks at me just with openness. And she doesn't care what I do. She doesn't care if I'm successful or not successful. She's come to realize I love the presence of my father. The presence of my father. Again, whether he's a doctor or not a doctor, I love him. Because she's grown and she's matured on her own path. And because of this, then we can have a beautiful relationship. Whereas in the past, she would just look at me with angst. And I was like, why the hell is my daughter, who I love so much, looking at me with such anger? It's like, oh, because she's constantly wanting me to be different. Now, of course, we all play the same game with life. I actually developed a little bit of angst this weekend because, I was building and I was wanting there to be no smoke in the air. I was wanting the job to be done. I was wishing that my daughter didn't ask me to build this playhouse, whatever we're calling this thing. I was wishing I was in Bali, or something on a surfboard, somewhere really wet and moist and, maybe in the ocean. I was wishing it wasn't so hot. Now, listen, I don't like winter at all. But today I'd have thought, boy, if it was winter, like most weekends in the winter, like I'm not doing much, because there's a lot of snow outside and you can't do any real work besides shoveling snow. But anyways, you get the idea. With our narrative, we can make ourselves sick. We can give ourselves an ulcer. Hell, there's some people give themselves a heart attack through having too much intensity, too much identification with the story and with the narrative. Now, the beautiful thing that the Buddha taught us, the beautiful thing that Jesus taught us, well, Buddha taught us that your true nature is your original nature. It's the nature you were born with. It's always already here. It's always innately good and pure, despite your personality, despite the personality, despite what you've been through in life. There's an essence, a presence here that is innately good. And the way Jesus said it, well, the kingdom of heaven is here. It's here. It's right here and now. And he went on to say, of course, that yet no man seeth. No one sees it because they're busy in their narrative. They're lost in their narrative. But if we step out of the narrative, we step way back, we start to see. We start to experience simply being open. And that's a good place to start, is just, am I open? And as we're open, we might notice that openness itself is innately good. Openness itself is innately radiant, is innately divine, is innately free, is innately peaceful. And in this peace, in this space, is freedom. And so, of course, in every moment of our life, we have this choice. Now, I just said, of course, but the ego doesn't think of course. The ego thinks, no, I will realize true nature later, another day, tomorrow. Right now, I got serious business to do. I have to build a clubhouse. That's what I have to do right now. I have to work from sun up to sundown. I have to work constantly. I'll experience true nature after I get this promotion, after I get the partner of my dreams. I got to work real hard right now so I get that new red shiny car, whatever it is. A lot of people do this silly thing is they just work like crazy, squirreling money away, saving for their retirement. And then finally, when they make it to retirement, I mean, hell, just like my poor father. I think my father was like retired maybe 6 months. And then that was it. That was it. Just went to heaven. Always putting himself last, putting work first. It's one of the great sins of our culture, one of the great confusions of our culture. And so if we want to be free, we have to be willing to stop and allow ourselves to experience great periods of time in silence. One of the great gifts that silence gives us is one, in the silence, oftentimes we see our thoughts and we're like, oh my gosh, this one is crazy. The one who's thinking these thoughts is crazy. And then hopefully, when we start to see that, we begin to see, oh, there's another way. And I don't mean another solution to life. because the mind's always looking for a solution or resolution. But can we step back and simply be this peace, be this light? And as we do so, we come to recognize, oh, there's no problem here. It's like my daughter, she grew up a little bit and she saw, oh, there's no problem with who my dad is. I can love him and relate to him just as he is. But if she makes a problem with me and my vocation, she makes a problem for herself, because then she doesn't get to experience the connection of having a father who absolutely loves her. Absolutely loves her. She could have a father who absolutely loves her, but not have a connection with him. Boy, wouldn't that be a tragedy? And one of the things that happens is sometimes when we spend enough time in silence or in meditation, we start to see the character. We see, oh my God, this character is suffering so much. She's so tight, so tense. He's always grasping, always doing this or that, chasing, chasing, chasing. But at some point, we mature enough on the spiritual path where we realize, I just can't run anymore. I can't chase anymore. This narrative, it doesn't lead me anywhere. And the thing about the ego is it's always trying to sell us the story that the truth or what we want is just right around the corner. It's right around the corner. Just if I could just get this one thing, but then you get that thing and you're happy for a little bit, and then it throws you the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And there's people who I've met a lot of people in the last couple of years who have been very successful online daters in that they're having lots of dates, lots of, going out and meeting for dinner or drinks or whatever. But because there's so many choices online, and they find themselves just like always just like chasing and grasping. And then one day waking up and realizing, gosh, I've been on so many dates with so many beautiful people, and sometimes weird people, bizarre people, confused people, all kinds of people. But it doesn't actually give them what they want. They're not finding love. They're just finding some form of stimulation. And then, of course, lots of frustration, lots of frustration. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to actually give up, on the chasing, to give up on the constant, self improvement and always trying to be bigger, greater, make more money, all that type of thing. It takes great courage to put down the narrative and simply just to be this quiet goodness, this quiet radiance. The ego is always going to be more, what's going to have more bells and whistles and drama and excitement. Ego's it's kind of like a Telemundo show. If you get into it, it's hard to turn that thing off. But once you turn it off for a period of time, you might realize, I don't want to watch that anymore. I don't want to watch that. It's too much suffering. It's too much violence, too much confusion, too much drama. It takes a brave soul to really step away. And oftentimes when we do step away, God doesn't show us our deepest nature right away. Often God makes us sit for a period of time. I'm not sure why that is, but it certainly makes you strong. It makes you disciplined. It makes you question, like, what do I want? Am I willing to sit here in this emptiness, in this aloneness, in this nothingness? For a day, a week, a month. And as you do so, you might start to recognize, oh, this nothingness, it's not nothing. There's something quite huge here. It's like scientists when they're trying to figure out what dark matter is. When they look at it, it just looks like nothing. When they start to measure, they say there's a tremendous amount of energy here. Oh, there's light in this darkness. What is this? What is this? And so the spiritual path is the same way. Is we have to be willing to give it some time, some energy, some attention. Come to see if what Jesus said, if what Buddha said is the truth, or if they were just a bunch of frauds. They're a bunch of frauds. I can tell you they're not. But some people certainly think they were. They were like, oh, Buddha, what's he talking about? Emptiness. Who wants that? Well, it's empty of drama. It's empty of suffering. It's empty of confusion. I'll take that. That sounds great. That sounds great. The other day I was at the hospital with my daughter. My youngest daughter had surgery and had her metal hardware taken out, because she broke her leg this December. Anyways, and there was a nurse there, and the nurse was walking around with a boot on her foot, like it's like a cast, but it's a boot, And I asked her, well, what'd you do? And, she looked at me and kind of smiled. And I was like, come on, like, what'd you do? And she said, well, I was out riding a dirt bike and I hit a tree. And I was like, okay, all right, yeah, like that might happen. I didn't say if you don't know how to ride, but I didn't say that. I was just like, yeah, that can happen. That can happen. And as humans, we don't like just to sit and do nothing. We want to ride our dirt bike. We want to ride our mountain bike. We want to get out and get crazy, mix it up, have some excitement. Have some excitement. Like that's the nature of the ego. And I'd even say like that's the nature of the soul. The soul likes to experience some new and wild things. After all, we incarnated here on planet Earth, we might as well be in the body and do some things. And there's a difference between doing some things that are in alignment with your heart and exploring reality and just being in this constant chase, like on Tinder or the infinity scroll. And of course, at some point, we're going to have to, at some point soon, we're going to come to terms with the AI and just see like, what's going to happen here with this thing? What's going to happen? I notice a lot of people are really excited about AI. It's an exciting thing. Till it takes over the world, it takes over the world. Till it takes your job. Anyways, I'm not going to get into AI right now. Let's see what you all wrote. Okay, Catherine writes, true nature is simple, good, and tender. And then her humanity, intense, need to perform, unearth, rectify, and amend, and grief. Yeah. David Morris writes, living life on life's terms. accepting that which is. Yeah, well, that's what it's like when we're in the truth. When we're in the truth. Lisa writes, true nature feels warm, open, confident, and safe. The narrative is tight, fearful, and unsafe. And what's so interesting to me is the division. The division. It's like we have these two selves. One we might call the narrative, the personality, the humanity, and then true nature. The beautiful thing about true nature is it's always already good. Now, it doesn't do us much good just to say that. We have to know it. We have to get to know true nature. But most of us, because our body is tight, because it's tense, because it's chasing, because it has, like what Catherine is saying, this intense need to perform. Like if we give into the intense need to perform and we allow that to lead us, well, we'll miss out on the tenderness of your being, the quiet depth and freedom of the soul. And so it's important to really look throughout the day, from which identity, from which place am I living? Am I living in the truth and the depth of my absolute nature? Or am I living in this human trajectory? And I've had an interesting experience where I've worked with a number of, I'm going to call them doctors. I don't know if that's the right word. They're med students who are doing their internship, and I'm just going to call them doctors. And like they're in the last year of medical school. And I get on the call with them, I'm having like a Zoom call or whatever. And I ask them what they want. And I ask them what they're doing. And they're these two different things. And by the end of the call, they tell me, I don't want to be a doctor. Man, I mean, I think you just spent like a couple $100,000 and, you could go into medical school or whatever. Like, you don't want to do this? What are you doing here? Well, my father wanted me to be a doctor. It's always the father. I don't know what it is about fathers wanting their kid to be doctors, but well, my dad wanted me to be a doctor. Well, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want to be? What is your truth? And if you ask your ego might tell you an answer that arises out of your conditioning. When I was a young boy, almost every year I dressed up on Halloween as an army guy. Call him an army man, even though I was just a little boy. I dressed up as an army man. And that's because I grew up in a military family. So I had this conditioning that I'm an army man. But as I stepped into my soul, as I get to know the truth of me, I realized, no, I'm not an army man. Like, that's not my truth. I don't want to go to war. I'm not looking to fight anybody. God bless you. If you're in the army or a soldier, you say, like, God bless you. But it's not my truth. It's not my truth to go to a foreign land to fight. But it is my truth to go inside this one and free this one, to liberate this one from his own pain and confusion. That's my truth. That's my truth. But, when I was a kid, it was the first Iraq. What was that one? Desert Storm. And I can remember I had friends who went to it, and I had a whole host of people that I knew that, they went off to that war, and, they they do this thing with soldiers. They like to give soldiers experimental shots, just like, hey, we'll give you lots of shots, And so I had these friends and they got all these shots and then they had the next 15 years of their life. And they told me they had chronic fatigue syndrome because they had Gulf War syndrome or something, whether it's from the shots or from the burn plants or the toxic fumes or the, what was the thing for a little bit? Uranium tipped rounds or whatever it was, it's like, my God, like that doesn't sound like a good life. It sounds like a terrible life. Terrible life to go off and fight an unnecessary war, creating enormous pain, for the people we're invading and then for yourself. It's like no way to live. No way to live. And when we're with our ego, you'll see that the ego is always leading us. And whether it's leading us through the collective conditioning, through our parental conditioning, through our educational conditioning, cultural conditioning, there's always this place the ego is leading us. And it tends to be away from God, away from happiness, away from joy. It tends to be towards more division, but somewhere in there is the promise of pain. Excuse me, the promise of peace, the promise of peace. Like that was the thing with Desert Storm, is there's going to be a promise of peace in the Middle East. It didn't work out, so we went back again. And it didn't work out. And then we went to Afghanistan and it didn't work out. And it's just like, my God, how much pain? How much pain? Whereas when we rest in true nature, we come to realize this quiet truth of, I'm good. And as we realize I'm good and we look around, we start to see, oh, and the world is good. I'm good and the world is good. I'm good and the world is good. Okay. Let's see what else. Lauren writes, true nature is bright and empty. Personality was obsessing about whether or not the rice cooker was boiling over and what I should season my dinner with. And I guess it's dinner time. All right. Aaron Morrissey writes, personality is tense and feels unsafe. Like I need to protect myself. Yeah, I think it's always a great question. Just really ask the personality, like, what is the danger now? In the here and now, what is the danger? Now, I can tell you, I imagine I'm one of the few people who was in a dangerous situation today, in this room, in this space. I was up on a roof and I'm running around on roof rafters, balancing, and I got a nail gun in one hand and, the other hand's up there balancing. It's like, whoa. And let me tell you, if you fall through the rafters, you're probably going to get racked, right between your legs. Or you might get racked under the armpit, it might rip your shoulder apart. Or like if you fly, right through, but then you turn your head, you might, hit your chin and, knock all the teeth out of your head. It's a dangerous situation. It's a real life danger. And so our ego is meant to get tense in real life, dangerous circumstances. The other day, I was on the trail, and common this time of year is I saw a big, fresh pile of bear poo-poo, and you see it, it's, I just shouldn't be graphic, but anyways, it's fresh, okay? And then you see another pile, it's like, oh, I'm following the bear. The bear likes this trail. We share the same trail. And then I told you all last week, we got the text, from the Red Alert app, whatever that is, that there's an aggressive bear in my neighborhood. Watch out, be on the lookout. stay away, stay away. And so in the world, there can be, of course, real danger. And that's what the ego's for. It's for real danger. But a lot of us, we don't have real danger. We have perceived danger, or we have psychological danger, which is someone disagrees with us, someone offends us, or we're projecting, thinking about, the future, thinking about, it's funny, just like even with burning the rice, your ego will make tension in the body if you start thinking about burning the rice. Whereas we don't need any tension if we're thinking about burning the rice, we just need to get up and walk over and take a peek. We don't need any tension. But the ego, because we have the same ego that the cave people had. And so this is the program that we have in us. And so it's important for us to really look, is it true that I'm unsafe? No, there's no danger here. But then, that might not heal the situation right away. The next question is what's here, that I need to love? Like, what is this place inside of me that feels unsafe? Like, what does she need? Like, what's going on there? How can I help her? Can I be soft? Can I be kind? Can I be compassionate? Can I be a service to the one who's suffering? Can I go in there and help liberate the ego from its own suffering? From its own suffering. And so it's important to really look and see, what is the actual danger? Sometimes there is actual danger, like I was saying, when I'm on the roof and, before the roof's even made, it's like, okay, like this is, like, you better pay attention. Pay attention, Mr. Holliday. So you don't fall and end up in a world of pain, a bunch of broken bones. But most of the time, because we don't have actual danger in our life, the ego, because it's just a creature of habit, it just sends us messages of danger. Or how many times have you been hurt or offended, gotten a disagreement with a friend, and then had that argument replay itself like 100 times in your head? And it's like, what's going on there? What's going on? Is that necessary? For the ego, it's like, yes, I need to just keep repeating the pain, and somehow that'll protect me from future pain, but it keeps me stuck in present moment pain. Whereas when we step back into true nature, we see, okay, I got in a disagreement. Oh, maybe I need to forgive. Maybe I need to let go. Maybe I need to consider what the other person said. How about that? Maybe they're right. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was confused. And so true nature, because it's silent, is a very good listener. The ego, not such a good listener. Not such a good listener. Okay. Yeah, Greg writes, the narrative feels high maintenance. Some people have and true nature feels low maintenance. Yeah, that's very beautiful. That's beautiful. Aaron writes, busy, cluttered, grasping, fear-based. That's the narrative. True nature, empty, luminous, strong, and expanded. Yeah. Okay. All right. So there's a couple questions. Let me get to one that was emailed. This is a beautiful question. It came from Johan. Hi, Craig. What is the value of anger as it relates to healing? I sometimes feel lately that saying F off or F you internally to some inner BS, trying to really censor myself here so YouTube doesn't yell at me, it feels good and it seems empowering. It's more like I'm allowing some parts of me to revolt against being suppressed by other parts for a long time. And is it necessary to express it outwardly and get messy in order to heal and become empowered? Yes, almost always it's necessary to get messy in order to heal. Healing is a messy endeavor. It's messy, but it's not necessary to express it outwardly. Like if your neighbor is giving you a hard time, I don't recommend yelling and screaming at them or throwing rocks at them or, that type of thing. Uh, but maybe speaking to them, like that would be a healthy expression, a healthy expression. It's rare that um, an F off or an FU is going to be the highest thing or the truest thing. That's going to be a rare thing. Now, if you have like a narcissist in your life who bullies you every day, yeah, maybe you need to tell them to F off. Like maybe that's the appropriate response. But more than likely, we don't need to say these things outwardly. But again, you might need to have a serious conversation with someone who's giving you a hard time. Now, if it's you, if all this is directed toward oneself, and I think Johann's alluding to this at least to some degree, it's more like I'm allowing some parts of me to revolt against being suppressed by other parts of me for a long time. Yeah, yeah. And so a moment ago, I said healing's messy. For many of us, if we just sit down, and I mean, why don't we just do this now? We can look inside and just notice, if there's anything within you that's unresolved. What is that thing? And so as soon as we see that, what's the thing within you that's unresolved? As soon as you see it, as soon as you feel it, you'll start to feel probably some level of what I'll call messiness, some level of icky energy, dense energy, heavy energy, nauseous energy. And we tend to avoid these feelings, And it'd be nice just to take a big backward step and say, haha, I am free now, just like the Buddha. And that's it. That's the end of the path. For most of us, things don't leave that quickly. And so, Johann, if there's something within you that's been suppressed for a long time, there's probably going to be a corresponding revolt. The same way, like I just talked about Iraq and Afghanistan, the reason those wars didn't go as planned is because, we came in and, they fought back. And so then we have this war. But if everyone just rolled over and played dead, it's like, okay, great. We win. Now we're the boss of the world. No big deal. But that's not how life works. There tends to be these forces that fight against each other. An oppressive force and then a rebelling force. And so we don't want to end with rebellion. Rebellion is just casting off the oppression. If you notice what happens after a war, like after the war is done, after we've rebelled, if you take another look inside, you might notice, gosh, beyond this angst is a great deal of sadness. Sadness that I oppressed myself, that I suppressed myself, sadness that I had this war inside. It's through feeling that war, feeling the heartache, through actually grieving, that we come to peace. We come to peace. But in the stages of grief, it normally goes something like denial, like we deny that there's any problem. And we start to realize there's a problem. And we tend to get angry when we realize there's a problem. After the anger has burnt itself off, and we tend to move into the stage of grief called sadness, like really grieving. And through sadness, we're actually letting go. Actually letting go. And with sadness, sadness tends to give birth to a tenderness and an openness And there's this unique quality of fearlessness that arises through working the stages of grief, through acknowledging, oh, I'm denying. And then, oh my gosh, I'm really angry and I want to kill somebody. And then looking a little bit deeper and realize, oh, I'm so sad. I hurt so much. This life is so hard. It's so confusing. It's so messy. And really letting one grieve and being tender-heartedly open to that grief. And through a willingness to feel it all and to not turn away, we discover this immense fearlessness and a corresponding freedom and a depth. And so I was speaking with Kyle the other day in the park, and we're talking about dropping through these layers of emotion. And we have to know this, and what I just really ask that we know this as a Sangha is there's going to be surface level thoughts under that, probably deeper thoughts and beliefs under that, an emotion, maybe a guilt or a frustration or an angst. Often it's an emotion that's tied with a judgment. Under that, a truer emotion like anger or rage or heartache or despair. And we're feeling and dropping through each layer of emotion until finally we end up just in silence, just in openness, just in love and peace. And so this is going to be the way. Now you might find that somewhere in that going through the stages, you might have run your mouth, Johan. You might have said some profanity to someone or something. But of course, that's not the end point, just to become angry. My teacher, he studied with Fritz Perls from Gestalt therapy. My teacher was, used to hang out with Fritz Perls at Esalen, and he studied with Fritz. And after a while, my teacher went home and worked with the teachings with his students and said, gosh, I feel like I'm just teaching my students to get angry. We need to keep working through the layers of it. And of course, if we need help with this, we can call upon the grace of God, call upon the community of saints to be with us. Because one of the great confusions that happens is when we're walking the steps of grief, of letting go, at any stage, we can get identified and attached, thinking this is our truth and we need to express it to the world. You hurt me and it's not fair. And the reason the world hurts us is because the world is hurting. But the world doesn't need more people screaming that you hurt me. The world needs people who can work with themselves and heal themselves and awaken to something much, much deeper than I'm a victim of you. Like if we play that game, it'll just be an eye for an eye, and pretty soon the whole world will be blind, like the great Mahatma once said. And so anyways, beautiful question, Johan. Drop through the layers, keep working through it. And, there's going to be sometimes when we're working through all those emotions, there's going to be some big expression. And often with that expression, could be some real messiness if we're in relationship. Okay. All right. Let's hear from Aaron, and then, we'll call it a night. Hi, Aaron. Are you here?
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Yeah. Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you, Craig. Um, I had I I was gonna attend a retreat that was canceled last minute, and I had been thinking about your chakra retreat last year. I had it sitting in my inbox.
Yeah.
I didn't attend, but I had all the videos. So I just got finished with that. In fact, so briefly that you said, "Hey, I'll see you all tonight at the morning session," and 10 minutes later, we were here.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
It
Yeah.
was wonderful, by the way, incredibly fabulous. I would love to have 7 retreats, one on each chakra.
Yeah.
Um, that would be fabulous because it feels like there's so much to explore. I wanted to ask you today around. I told you a couple weeks ago that I broke up with my partners and I'm just in this like total transition phase. And mm, it's very intense, but it's also very clarifying, very grounding time.
Yeah.
Uh, I could reach out and act out in all sorts of different ways. And in some more minor ways, I found myself doing that, but for the most part, kind of staying with the process. And part of that process is um, facing the fact that I have what am I looking for here? My private practice isn't financially viable right now because I need to like get out there and do more shit. Like on YouTube or Instagram, all that wonderful social media marketing, applying for insurances as well. And so I'm what I want to inquire about with you today is really more about the YouTube, Instagram, putting yourself out there side of things.
Mhm.
Um, I've done a little bit of it, but now it's time to get consistent, and it's like it really just has to happen now. You know what I mean? Like I'm at that point where it's like, oh yeah, it's absolutely time. And what am I looking for here? I'm never healed enough or awake enough as I want to be to get out there and talk to people about things. I always feel like I need to be farther along the path.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one that people have told me numerous times that, I see someone, they're a bright light, they have a gift, and they hesitate to share their gift. And the narrative is, when I am fully 100% awake and somehow a perfected being, then I can start teaching, then I can start sharing. And excuse me, that day will never come. It'll never, I mean, it might come, but we might be 86 years old by the time, that we think that we are so wise and we know everything. And it's just like, come on. It's a terrible model, but it's the model that spirituality has really given us. The image of Jesus, the image of Buddha, the image of these great ones. And, they're saintly beings. And so, of course, we bow before them. But if you hear what you said a moment ago, like, I need to get on YouTube. What is YouTube? It's you tube. It's the tube of you, of Aaron. Right now, we might be listening to Craig tube, or whatever. It's just like, this is the tube, the story, the transmission
Mhm.
of Craig, of this life, of this one here. And I knew this just because, like, when I was young, I wanted to be a teacher. I really wanted to be a priest. Like, that was the thing. That was the model I had in my head. And the idea was, you go to the seminary, but the seminary, it just didn't work for me. But I was given this teacher archetype. And so it just made sense that I'm teaching in some avenue. But with teaching, I like to think of, I just teach to myself. Like, that's who the student is. The student is Craig talking to Craig, Craig sharing with Craig, Craig giving counsel or support to Craig. But I like to think of there's this one in the present, and the one I'm talking to is like Craig a couple of years ago. Could Craig a couple of years ago benefit from Craig here in 2025? Most certainly. Most certainly. If you look at yourself now and what you've realized, all that you've learned on the path, your skills, your training, and if you just imagine seeing yourself 10 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Hell, a lot of times it's Craig talking to Craig yesterday. It's just like, could Craig yesterday benefit from Craig today? Yes, of course. Of course. And if we look at just what's going on here on planet Earth, we're at a real unique time in history. I really wanted to talk a little bit about AI, but I don't want to get into it tonight. But we're at this real cornerstone where it's like all of us right now, if you have a smartphone, we have this ability to share, to transmit our light, our truth,
Mm.
our divinity, what we've learned, our failures, our mistakes, our confusion, whatever it is, to the world and to share it. And we're growing this collective knowledge, this collective wisdom. It's creating some level of a collective awakening. Now more than ever,
Mm.
so many people are waking up. And it's because someone was brave enough to share. Someone was brave enough to share. Like my teacher, David, he's just a young guy from Oregon, and he was like really an artist and then became a healer and then a spiritual teacher. And it's like, I'm so thankful that this guy came forward and shared. His teacher, Hilda, she was a dancer. And, she danced as a beautiful dancer, but at some point she wanted to share this purely her heart, purely this light. And I'm so thankful. There's a young fella from Santa Cruz, and he said, hey, I'm going to share. Actually from Los Gatos, but that's right next to Santa Cruz. Anyways, he wanted, and so at some point, this ordinary guy decided to share his truth, and it changed the lives of so many people. So many people. And so all day long, if we just look at the internet has everything on it. The most horrific thing, like for a while, I mean, you could go on YouTube and see slave trading happening in Libya. It's like they'd have the markets and it'd be like trading slaves, like horror. You see the absolute horror, or you can see just absolute Buddha nature, Christ consciousness being shared. And so within this collective context, it's like, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to sit back and hesitate and say, I'm not good enough? And allow narcissists to rule planet Earth? Like that's who's in charge of planet Earth, is narcissists with nuclear weapons. It's insane. Wall Street bankers who are just so greedy, wanting to take all the money and who invest in war forever. Forever. We have big chemical companies and pharmaceutical companies just poisoning us, trying to keep us sick and addicted. It's like, this is an insane world. Now, those people have no problem sharing. Zero. Zero problem sharing. But for some reason, spiritual people, we tend to hide. We've been cloistered for so long. I remember when I visited the Gethsemane Monastery in Kentucky, where Thomas Merton was, and they gave us a little talk before we entered the monastery, and they said, "Okay, you're going to enter the cloistered walls of the monastery." And I was like, "Cloistered walls? What are we talking about here?" And as soon as I entered it, I realized, oh, there are people who lived like in this little bubble of spirituality, and they weren't connected to the world. And that's how spirituality has been for thousands of years. But now is the time when we can actually be a part of the change. And we're all transmitting all the time. Every moment of our life, we're transmitting. And so we can walk around transmitting, I'm not good enough, but maybe in the future, one day I'll be better, and then I'll transmit and I'll share my light. And if you do that as a transmission,
Right.
you should expect the world to mirror back lack consciousness.
Mhm.
We should expect not to have a full private practice. If we hide, we should expect not to be seen. I'm not saying you're hiding, but I'm just using this as an example. If we're not going out to the world saying, ta-da, here I am, and especially like in this modern age where, in order to be seen in the modern world and the technology, in the world of technologies, like we have to have a website, we have to have some kind of social media presence if we're going to engage with business. And so many of us, it's a journey. Like I was talking with Johan earlier, he was like, well, how do I work with anger? We talked about how we work with anger, but there's a different journey, as we launch. And for me, I really came to realize there's something in here that's scared, that's hesitating, that feels unworthy, and he's kind of got his head down. he's got, and then he's sticking out his lip, like a pouting little boy because he's so damn broke he can't pay the bills. It's like, life's not fair. And it's true, life's not fair, but this is a world in this moment in history where if we're going to be successful, you have to be seen. And so there's this whole spiritual journey about being seen,
Mm.
a whole journey around being seen.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a willingness, a courage for you to look inside and see there's something good here. There's
Mm.
something good. And can I support this goodness coming out?
Right.
And nowhere in there, like, is that narcissistic. There's something good here. And when you really start to see there's something good here and you want to share it, we're sharing it because we're helping other people just like us discover there's something good in you. There's a light in you. There's a light in me. There's a light in you. There's a light in everything. Let's honor the light. Let's come together in holy communion, seeing the light in each other. And it's such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing. But it requires great courage and it forces us to look at our unworthiness or our desirous distractibility. I'm just saying that because you just got out of a relationship. And, one of the things, like if we're always in relationship, it's like, well, our relationship can always distract us. It can always give us like this whole drama and chasing and thing we need to do and solve and fix, and all that kind of thing. But when it's you and you, when we're given the gift of being alone, we can really look inside and say, hey, like, what's working in my life? Okay, good. Let's do more of that. What's not working? Oh, the job's not working. Why not? Do I have issues of unworthiness? Do I not believe in myself? Do I fundamentally believe there's not a seat for me at the table? Like, what is it? What are my thoughts and my beliefs about this world? And I mean, I had all of them. There's no seat for Craig Holliday at the table of life. I believed that forever.
Mm.
And it's a funny thing. I had so much grace, so much light just pouring into me. God was fully here. An army of angels are just like dancing around me. And I was so gifted spiritually. But then I thought, I'm gifted spiritually. My belief was I'm gifted spiritually, but there's no place in the world for Craig. This is not a spiritual world. This is a worldly world. And there's no place for spiritual people. And I had that belief for, my God, like 20 years of my adult life.
Yeah.
For 20 years, I held on this belief. Even like post awakening, I still had this belief. And at some point, I started to realize, oh my God, this is insane.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great sin that I'm committing. I'm creating a division of the spiritual world and a worldly world. God
Mm-hmm.
said there's just one world. Every great master said there's just one world. But we take the world and we divide it into two. And normally our ego somewhere in there is there with a thought, and there's no place for me. There's no place for me. Because just the energy of the ego is I'm separate and I'm alone. Whereas, one of the great gifts of millennials is they just have a lot of what's the word? Entitlement? It's entitlement, just like I deserve to be here and I deserve to have 1 million followers and go viral or whatever it is. Like there's just a
Definitely,
lot of that as belief, and it's
definitely.
just amazing. Like they just like believe that that's a possibility. When I was a kid, that wasn't a possibility. The only one who could be famous was Tony Hawk or Michael Jordan. It's like those are the people who could be famous. You have to be incredibly good at sports or be Michael Jackson or something, or sing. That's like I can't sing and I'm just barely mediocre at sports, but like I don't got those things. I got this big heart. And the beautiful thing about this time in history
Mhm.
is there's an opportunity to share.
Right.
There's an opportunity to share. And so I invite you to really look inside and see, well, what is Aaron's narrative about sharing? So you said in the beginning, I need to be more awake or enlightened or something. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean that's one thing.
Okay, but go a little
Another
deeper.
thing
What's
is,
deeper than that?
yeah, I there's fear of failure. There's fear of uh, sharing from an unintegrated place and hurting people. I've had some clients recently that I've botched things with a bit.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's like, oh God, oh geez, I got all this training to avoid doing this, and then I came in and I was giving my all, I was doing my very best, and I
yeah,
still
yeah,
botched it with them. One of them
yeah.
I feel in a rather significant way, and I mean he's fine at the end of the day, and found someone else to help him in the ways that he needed, but that sticks with me very loud in my nervous
Yeah,
system.
and
Oh
and
God.
listen, it's like part of maturity is is having like a full sense of humility and recognizing like I'm going to go forward here on planet Earth,
Right.
but I'm going to fail.
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
to fail. I'm going to fail a lot,
Totally.
a lot.
Yes.
But it's through failing a lot that, we course correct and we really learn how to show up and how to be a service. But we have to give ourselves permission to be human and to grow and just to acknowledge like here on planet Earth, it's an evolutionary world. We're going to fail a lot. I've failed so much in my life,
Right.
so much, so much. I continue to fail. I continue to make mistakes. So it's like, okay, but do we learn? Can we grow? Can we evolve? Can we forgive ourselves? Can we just accept that this is part of reality? And you said it. Can we trust that the other person, like ultimately, they're going to be okay?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Like we all learn from each other, even if it's like I've met with counselors, therapists, healers, all kinds of people. Some of them did really crazy, effed up things, and it was like, whoa, like that was a crazy session. But afterwards, I might not reschedule with them, but afterwards, I'm like, okay, that's not what you do. That's not how you heal. That was not, helpful or whatever.
Right.
But, it's like, okay, we learn a thing or two, and that's going to happen here on planet Earth. There's going to be some mistakes. There's going to be some failure.
Yeah.
And, we have to be comfortable with that. Like the big thing is really trusting that there's a place for Aaron here on planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
A place where you're loved, where you're supported, where you're acknowledged, where you share your gift. And again,
Right.
like there's doesn't need to be any narcissism in it. It can just be a sense of course, there's people who could benefit from this heart,
Yeah.
from your knowledge, from your wisdom, from your failures,
Mm-hmm.
from your failures. Of course, of
Mm.
course. Of course, and to really be courageous and say, okay,
Got it.
I'm going to go forward and I'm going to open my mouth and I'm going to share and I'm going to give myself permission to grow and evolve and make some mistakes and try some new things and continue going forward. I don't know if did you see there's a documentary on Netflix about Led Zeppelin.
Mm.
So of course, greatest rock and roll bands of all time. But these guys, Like they started in the UK and they couldn't get an audience to show up. They couldn't get any fans. Like no one would come and watch them play. And here you have Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, one of the best guitarists ever, John Bonham, one of the best drummers ever, John Paul Jones, like all these guys, and nobody would come. So they got on an airplane, they came to the United States and they travel around to colleges and they'd play. And it's hilarious because, Robert Plant is just like screaming and dancing and, doing his, just wild, wild man dance all over the stage. And you look out at the crowd and they're just like looking off into space, like, what the hell is this? You're like, no one knew what this kind of rock and roll was. Nobody understood it. And it took them a couple months here in the US. And then finally, people, they ended up in San Francisco or somewhere. And people were like, yeah, like this is the new thing.
Time.
This is it. But they had just failure after failure after failure. I mean, they were so broke and just like no one was showing up. And then immediately, they went like platinum records or whatever, but changed the course of history. But it
Right.
was hilarious to see Robert Plant, Jimmy, just like John Martin, just all of them going just like
Mm.
full crazy rock and roll, screaming, playing the guitar, and people were just sitting there like, what the hell is this? Like,
Yeah.
what is all this sound? This sounds crazy. And people were just not into it at all, but they didn't give up. They didn't give up. They just kept sharing their heart. And then finally, they found their people. And when they found their people, those people told all kinds of people. And even the critics even came after them, just told them how terrible their music were and their album was, just garbage. And they believed in themselves. And we need that kind of energy if
Right.
we're going to make it in this world.
Right.
Now, I'll take it, one last step further and I'll say this being a path, we need to look inside and see where's our wound, where's our shadow, how's that causing us to hesitate? Can I meet that place with love? Can I grieve? Can I let go? Can I hold? Can I nurture? Can I uplift? All those aspects of myself. And can I absolutely believe that God has come into this one and God has something that God wants to share through Aaron?
Right.
And can
Yes.
we see this as you serving God and take the ego fully out of it? Just see, I'm here to serve God. God has given me this desire. This is a pure desire. This is God's desire. And in this non-dual sense, we serve this through being the light. And we see, oh, I'm actually obligated. I
Right.
am obligated to share. I have to do this.
Right.
And so I want you to notice like the next time when you have some free time and it's time to do your marketing, your social media, or your YouTube or whatever, I love telling people, hey, you should start a YouTube channel because they're like, I should do the dishes right now. Is what I should be doing. I
Right.
need to do, and then I got to clean my room.
Right.
And then after that, I just need to go through the garage or the basement and clean that all out.
Yeah.
And then I get to that YouTube channel thing because the last thing I want to do is hear myself speak, but if you're going to play with YouTube, you're going to play with social media, you write something, you share something, you record something. And if you don't like it, it's like delete, take two, take three, take four, take five, take six,
Right.
and to get real comfortable and to burn off like all that self-consciousness and that self-judgment and to really get comfortable with and say, okay, I'm here to serve God. I'm here to serve God. Okay. And so with that, we don't negotiate. It's like God's the boss and I'm showing up for work. And that's the deal. And we keep putting ourselves out there, and you'll see that you'll be continually challenged, just like Robert Plant and the boys. We're going to be continually challenged, but our job is to have absolute faith
Right.
that there's something good here and continuing to share that goodness, until it becomes sustainable.
Totally. Craig, I want to say one more thing that
Yeah.
I don't need you to respond to because I recognize we're quite over time, but I do want to say it to And I have lots of wanting to serve God and the obligation and all of that. For me right now, actually, it feels like I was talking about a couple of weeks ago as well. It feels even more important to connect down and go, this is what I want to do. I want to
Yeah,
share.
yeah,
I do have something to offer.
yeah,
I think I'm
yeah.
super
That's
great.
where
You
you
know what I mean?
become, yeah, that's where
That
you become
vein
God.
of like a healthy egoic or healthy personality
Yeah, yeah,
development kind of place.
yeah,
And so I just wanted to voice that because I am totally fearful of being a narcissist, and I've got a narcissist in here and all of those things as well. But
yeah.
there's something so real around like, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to do. I have something to offer. I'm going to push into this, etc.
That's the journey of worthiness.
Yeah.
Journey
Okay.
of worthiness. You come to realize there's something here that's
Mm,
good, and this goodness
I love that.
wants to share, it wants to connect, it wants to be in communion. I want this thing, which is good, which
Yeah.
is true. And you'll
Yeah.
see there's a power behind it. At that point, it goes beyond healthy ego. And that's again where you just start merging with the mind of God. And so that's where we surpass duality. And it's
Mm,
like we
yeah.
get screaming at the top of, the Empire State Building, I want to, I am the truth. I want to be the truth. This is what I want. But if we really look at where'd that desire come from, it's like that's God speaking through you as you.
Totally. Totally.
It's
Totally.
God speaking through you as you. And that takes a great amount of self-esteem to acknowledge that.
Right.
And
Right.
so this is where a healthy ego just merges into the absolute nature of reality.
I love that.
And then it's like ego, no ego. It's like it's
Right.
what is it at that point?
Same
What
deal.
is it at
Right.
that point? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And so by
That's
all means, you find your way through it. And if it's through you saying this is what I want, then let's, invoke some Tony Robbins energy,
totally.
go after it. And
Yeah.
go after it. And it's Tony Robbins. Like he seems like, oh, he's just a self-help, this or that. But I mean, he's God in the flesh, sharing this most brilliant light. And then, sometimes he'll talk about money or whatever. So, finance or investing in Wall Street. And it's like, okay, man, that's a little
All right.
ego
All
there,
right.
this or that. But his whole life is just
Um,
inspiring humans to live
oh,
their highest nature.
yeah, totally. Totally.
And so
Nice.
please, the world needs you. The world needs each of you, each of you. So, anyways, thank you so much,
Thank you,
Aaron.
Craig.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Well, look at the time. So much love to all of you, and we'll see y'all soon. We'll see you soon. So much love. Good night, everyone.